Welcome to Dark Alley Stories. Don't forget to subscribe and like. In the outskirts of Tokyo stood an old house, silent yet heavy with a hidden history. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, but inside, madness and blood had shaped a cursed legacy forever. Everything began on a night filled with rage. Takeo, a jealous man, discovered that his wife Kayako had feelings for another. That night, the home turned into a slaughterhouse of horror. With bloodshot eyes, Takeo attacked Kayako. He threw her to the floor, wrapped his hands around her throat, and squeezed until the sound of breaking cartilage filled the darkened room. He did not stop. Her long black hair spread across the floor. Grabbing it, he smashed her head repeatedly against the wooden boards, each thud echoing with pain and blood. Dragging her by the hair, he pulled her down the staircase, step by step. Her body struck the edges, leaving a trail of blood smeared across the walls like grotesque brushstrokes. When she was nearly lifeless, Takeo stuffed her body into a bag, abandoning her to die in silence. Her final breath, filled with terror and hatred, birthed an eternal curse. Their young son Toshio had seen it all. The child wept, but Takeo had no mercy. He dragged Toshio to the bathroom, shoved him into a filled tub, pressing his small head underwater. The child's screams blended with the cat's shrieks echoing in the house. Bubbles rose, popped, then silence. Both mother and son's souls were trapped, transformed into vengeful spirits. From that night onward, whoever entered the house was bound to this curse. The grudge clung to them like a shadow, following until death embraced its chosen victims. The first victim was a social worker sent to care for an elderly woman. Upon entering, she felt the air heavy, the silence unnatural, and the faint stench of something rotten. On the floor, she noticed dark stains resembling dried blood. Suddenly, nails scraped across the wall. Looking up, she saw Toshio's pale face, staring with hollow, soulless eyes. She staggered backward, heart pounding. Toshio vanished with his cat. That night, in her own bed, she felt something crawl beneath the blanket. Terror froze her as the sheets shifted. A guttural croak rose beside her ear. Cold, wet hair slithered under the blanket, creeping into her mouth and nose. She choked, thrashing, until breath was torn from her body. Another victim, a curious student, entered the cursed house. He found Kayako's diary in the upstairs room. Just then, childish laughter echoed, chilling the air with unseen presence. He turned and saw Toshio grinning eerily in the corner. Fear gripped him. As he moved to flee, bloody handprints appeared on every wall, smearing the room with grotesque warnings. From the ceiling, long strands of black hair descended, twisting like serpents. They coiled around his body, tightening until his spine cracked. His lifeless body sank into shadows. A police officer investigating grew trapped in terror. As he took photos, dragging footsteps sounded. Turning, he saw Kayako crawling, head tilted, moving with unnatural contortions. Her face veiled by hair, that croaking rattle echoed. He fired his gun, but pale arms burst from the dark, seizing the weapon and pulling him screaming into endless blackness. The curse never stopped. Victims found her everywhere. At work, at home, even crowded streets. One looked in an elevator mirror, only to see Kayako standing behind, waiting. Another heard a cat scream beneath her desk in class. Panic spread as she realized escape was impossible. The grudge clung tighter, dragging every soul toward inevitable doom. The final survivor sought to reveal the truth, but the curse drew him back inside. The house waited, its dark halls echoing with footsteps, whispers, and the croak of death. Shadows stretched across the walls. Cold air choked his breath as he moved deeper. He raised his flashlight, trembling, each beam swallowed by the suffocating darkness. Suddenly, the sound of a cat's shriek echoed through the halls. His heart pounded. From the corner, Toshio appeared, his hollow black eyes glowing with inhuman emptiness. The boy stood silently, then vanished. The man spun in panic, only to feel strands of wet black hair brush against his skin, wrapping around his arms and legs tightly. He screamed, struggling, but the hair coiled tighter like serpents. His flashlight fell, rolling across the floor, flickering before extinguishing, plunging the hall into complete darkness. From the darkness, Kayako emerged, crawling unnaturally, her head tilted, hair covering her pale face. The croaking death rattle grew louder, chilling the survivor's blood. Her body twisted in impossible ways, joints bending backward. Each step brought her closer, her nails scratching the wooden floor, leaving trails of splinters and dust. The man tried to crawl away, but the hair dragged him back. Cold strands slithered into his mouth, nose, and ears. He gagged violently, choking as panic consumed him. Kayako's pale hands gripped his face, forcing his eyes open. She leaned close, her blank white gaze piercing him. Her rattling croak filled the hallway with dreadful finality. His scream cut short as her hair invaded deeper, suffocating him completely. His body went limp, swallowed by the shadows. Silence fell, only the croak echoing faintly. The house stood silent again, its walls soaked with memories of torment. The curse lingered, patient and eternal, waiting for the next soul bold enough to enter. Outside, the world moved unaware, but within the house, shadows shifted, whispers stirred. The spirits of Kayako and Toshio remained restless, forever hungry for new victims. Kayako's death rattle echoed endlessly through the halls, a reminder of her agony. Her twisted crawl replayed eternally, a nightmare cycle binding all who dared intrude. Toshio's ghostly laughter blended with the cat's shriek, freezing blood. His small, pale figure wandered rooms, silent until his hollow gaze met another unsuspecting victim. Each victim carried the curse beyond the house. No matter the distance, Kayako and Toshio followed, appearing in mirrors, under beds, behind doors, inescapable and merciless. One victim hid beneath blankets, trembling. The fabric shifted as invisible hands pressed down. Wet hair crept across the bed, sliding toward her face with suffocating intent. Another victim in an elevator looked into the mirror. Behind her, Kayako's figure loomed silently, pale and dreadful. When she turned, the space was empty, yet cursed. The curse spread like a plague, unseen but unstoppable. Every scream, every gasp echoed in eternity. The house was not merely haunted, it was alive, feeding on despair. Its wooden beams groaned, walls bled shadows, and the silence felt sentient. No prayer, no ritual could break it. Once touched, the grudge clung until death claimed all. The legend of the house endured, whispered in fear. Yet curiosity drew more inside. And so, the cycle of terror continued, endless, with Kayako's croak haunting forever. Rika screamed as Kayako's hair poured through ceiling cracks, wrapping her wrists. She was lifted into the air, her neck snapping violently as whispers grew louder around her. The police officer entered, flashlight trembling. He saw Kayako's pale hand dragging itself across the floor. The beam flickered, and suddenly, she stood inches. The officer fired his gun, but bullets passed through her like mist. Kayako's jaw unhinged, stretching impossibly wide as she screamed, the sound shattering glass around them. He stumbled back, slipping on blood pooling beneath his feet. Toshio appeared suddenly, cat in arms, staring with inhuman emptiness. The officer froze as the boy whispered. The whisper slithered into his mind, erasing thoughts. The officer dropped his weapon, eyes turning vacant, his body jerking violently as Kayako's shadow entered him completely. Elsewhere, a student fled down the hallway, doors slammed shut by unseen force. Kayako appeared at the end, crawling closer, her broken limbs cracking with each movement. The student screamed, turning to escape, only to find Toshio blocking the way. The boy's mouth opened unnaturally wide, unleashing a shriek that burst the victim's eardrums. The student collapsed, blood running from ears. Kayako's hair snaked around his throat, pulling him backward into the dark, his nails scraping the floor until silence returned. Kayako's curse spread further, into neighbors' homes. People awoke at night, choking as black hair grew from their throats. Mirrors reflected her pale face even when she wasn't there. A woman saw Kayako in her bathroom mirror. Terrified, she turned, but the room was empty. When she looked back, Kayako was inside the glass, pressing her face outward. The glass shattered, slicing the woman's skin. Kayako's arms reached out of the shards, pulling her screaming into the mirror's void, her blood splattering across the tiles. Neighbors whispered about the cursed house, but those who entered vanished. Some claimed to hear scratching sounds at night, or see shadows moving inside when no one lived there. A reporter came, seeking truth. He set cameras inside the house. At midnight, they captured Kayako crawling downstairs, her body contorting unnaturally, eyes staring at the lens. The reporter reviewed the footage in horror. Suddenly, Kayako's face appeared on the screen, staring directly at him. Her pale hand reached out of the monitor, grabbing his throat. He struggled, gasping as her grip tightened. The screen flickered with static, his screams muffled. Moments later, the room fell silent, only the monitor glowing with shadows. Kayako's curse had crossed boundaries through screens, through voices. No distance could protect. Anyone who learned of her, anyone who saw her image, was doomed to suffer. One family moved in, unaware. Their child heard scratching under the bed. When the mother checked, Kayako's pale face stared back, hair dripping as she reached for her ankles. The mother screamed, pulled beneath. The child cried as Kayako's hair wrapped around his arms, dragging him too. Their father entered, only to see the bed drenched in blood. The father tried to run, but every door slammed. Kayako emerged from the ceiling, upside down, her hair swaying. She dropped on him, twisting his body until bones snapped. The house stood silent again. Shadows filled each corner, whispers echoing. Kayako's curse fed on their pain, growing stronger, ensuring no one who entered would ever leave alive.